Happening now, breaking news. President Trump just landed in Los Angeles to tour wildfire devastation as he's now threatening to get rid of FEMA and warning that disaster aid from the federal government to California may come with strings attached. I'll get reaction from U.S. Senator and California Democrat Alex Padilla. Also tonight, the U.S. Senate is nearing what's likely to be a very close vote on confirming Pete Hegseth as Defense Secretary. With two Republicans now set to vote no, will there be any new GOP defections as allegations of misconduct hang over Hegseth's nomination? Plus, just days after his release from federal prison, former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio talks to CNN about getting clemency from President Trump and whether he and other free January 6 convicts are out for revenge. Welcome to our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin with the breaking news. President Trump just landing in California to tour wildfire destruction while threatening drastic changes in federal disaster relief. Our correspondents are standing by in both disaster areas the president is visiting today. First, the CNN's Nick Watt in Los Angeles. Nick, as Mr. Trump prepares for this tour, he is already talking about placing new conditions on federal aid to Los Angeles.
That's right, Wolf. The president is saying that he wants voter ID laws in California and also that he wants them to, quote, release the water. Now, this is a theory that President Trump has, that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, or New Scum, as President Trump calls him, Trump believes that Newsom signed a document, which in fact doesn't exist, that keeps a lot of fresh water up in the rainier north of California, and Trump believes that if that water was channeled down to the south, it would have been enough to stop these wildfires. Now, we've spoken to many experts who say that is just not true. They say that this issue with the water staying up in Northern California to save the habitat of the endangered smelt, a little fish that President Trump calls a worthless fish, they say that that has nothing to do with the water that was used to fight these fires down in the south. Actually, they say Los Angeles has above average levels of water. The issue here, they say, is the municipal water systems. There is no city on earth, many people have told me, that would be able to fight these fires. Nobody has a water system that's big enough to fight the raging blazes that we saw here in California. Now, President Trump also said that there weren't any firefighting planes. Also not true. There were, but in those hurricane force winds, those planes just can't operate. So President Trump has landed. He's going to go on an aerial tour. Then he's going to take a walking tour around the Alphabet Streets in the Palisades, one of those areas that has just been flattened, that looks like a hellscape. And then there is going to be a roundtable and a briefing at a firehouse with some local politicians and others. That could be interesting. Could be interesting if some of those local politicians perhaps challenge Mr. Trump on his ideas about conditions tied to federal aid. Now, the relationship between President Trump and the governor of this, the most populous state, could well be one of the defining relationships of the next couple of years. They have history, this pair. They do not like each other. Remember back in 2018, President Trump criticized California, saying that they needed to rake the forests and that would help. Now, in 2023, California thinned about 1 million acres. And experts tell us that no amount of thinning would have helped with the devastation we saw here. No amount of thinning could have stopped what happened here. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these two men interact. You know, you expect after a disaster, the president and the governor to be working hand in hand. That's clearly not going to happen. I mean, Governor Gavin Newsom is at the airport to meet President Trump, but we heard from Newsom's aides that there was almost no contact between the two before the president landed here. Wolf?
I will watch that to be sure. Nick, stand by for us. I want to go to see that's Jeff Zeleny. He's in Asheville, North Carolina right now. That's a city still recovering from Hurricane Helene. Jeff, when the president was there earlier today, he floated the idea of actually scrapping FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Well, this was President Trump's first trip outside of Washington since taking office, and he was starting here before going to California, and that was by design. He said he wanted to start in a red state, of course, a state that he won, before traveling to a blue state of California, a state that he did not. But, Wolf, the residents on the ground here do not see their disaster rate in red or blue or Republican or Democrat. But there is no question that these disasters actually are quite linked, and here is why. The disaster conversation on Capitol Hill, the aid and the benefit that is going to be part of any spending bill, is going to be linked. Of course, Hurricane Helene was some 4 months ago, but there is no question the western North Carolina region still needs more money to recover. You can see behind me here, Wolf, this used to be an art gallery, just one example of many hundreds and thousands of examples across this region. But when the president came here today, he used this backdrop to make his claim for reshaping federal government, including FEMA.
FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. I like, frankly, the concept when North Carolina gets hit, the governor takes care of it. When Florida gets hit, the governor takes care of it, meaning the state takes care of it.
So that, of course, was not something out of the blue. It was actually something that has been discussed for a long time. It was a key example in the Project 2025, that congressional, the conservative manifesto, if you will, last year during the campaign, essentially eliminating some elements of the government. But what the challenge with that is, the direct understanding of FEMA is, it doesn't take care of everything. It assists local and state governments and coordinates disaster relief. Think back to Hurricane Katrina, which you covered, of course, and so many other disasters along the way. FEMA was a key coordinator of all of that. So it's not something the president can do on his own, eliminate FEMA. That would have to be an act of Congress. And well, for all the disagreements in Congress, it's bitterly divided. Largely, FEMA has been something that most sides can agree upon because disasters happen in all places, as we can see now, here in red North Carolina and in blue California.
Yeah, important point, Jeff Zeleny and Nick Watt, to both of you. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, take a look. You're looking at live pictures of Air Force One. It's now on the tarmac in Los Angeles. Momentarily, we're told the president will be walking down those stairs. The California governor, Governor Newsom, is waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs. We'll watch that as it unfolds. We'll see how they react with each other. No great friends, to be sure. Right now, I want to get some facts about FEMA after President Trump made false and misleading claims about the federal agency. CNN's Tom Foreman is taking a closer look for us. Walk us through what FEMA actually does, Tom.
FEMA basically does the job of helping communities when they cannot handle things themselves, when it's just too much. You mentioned a minute ago Katrina over here. Katrina in 2005, that cost $201 billion, according to federal agents, to deal with that. $160 billion for Hurricane Harvey back in 2017, and now an unknown amount for the Los Angeles fires. Under the proposal of Donald Trump, the red states of Alabama and Louisiana, for example, they would have had to pay that by themselves. There may be other ways around it, but what has happened in recent years and what has helped spur this is the fact that spending, as we've had bigger disasters, more costly disasters, some of this may be from climate change, also a lot of it has to do with, many of these are hurricane disasters, and we have built and built and built for decades in coastal areas, so there's a lot more damage being done by these storms, Wolf.
Tom, let's talk a little bit about some of the specifics. What does FEMA's funding actually pay for?
What it pays for is a variety of things. In a public sense, it helps restore roads and bridges and public buildings and services that people need in a disaster area. It helps get rid of all the debris and the hazards that are there after a big event. And for individuals, it can provide emergency shelter, food and water, services, and some housing. It does not replace houses. A lot of times after a big disaster, people say, well, FEMA came in and they only gave us $45,000. Well, that's all they give. They're not there to replace everything. Insurance is supposed to do that. They're trying to help out. So that's basically what FEMA does after a disaster, Wolf.
Federal disaster aid is so important to these states. Thanks very much, Tom Foreman, helping us appreciate what FEMA does. I want to get a reaction to all of this from Senator Alex Padilla, Democrat of California. Senator, thanks so much for coming in. We see the president walking down those stairs right now. He's about to be received by your governor of California, Governor Newsom. There he is. Let's see how they react. Shaking hands. saying something. Clearly no microphones there. It's clearly a nice gesture on the part of your governor to formally receive the President of the United States on the tarmac there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, despite the rhetoric going back
The
and
rhetoric is pretty awful, too.
we all have a job to do. And the governor has stepped up, not just in the response these last several weeks to the fires, but if I can put myself in his mind, he's probably telling the president, we meet again. Because during President Trump's first term, he actually came out to California to visit other fire-ravaged areas in Northern California.
Senator, hold on for a minute. I want to hear what the
Very
President
good
is saying.
shape. We have the congressman in charge and Michael Watley, and we're going to do a lot of work. We have the Army Corps of Engineers working as they are here. And I think you're going to see some very big progress. They left them high and dry. And now we're going to be taking a little tour with some of the people from the area. I appreciate the governor coming out and meeting me, Kevin. Very much, and we'll be talking a little bit. We want to get it fixed. We want to get the problem fixed, and there'll be some ways. But it's like you got hit by a bomb, right? Yeah. Like you got hit by a bomb. Would you like to say something?
Most importantly, thank you for being here. It means a great deal to all of us, not just the folks in Palisades, the folks in Altadena that were devastated. We're going to need your support. We're going to need your help. You were there for us during COVID. I don't forget that. And I have all the expectations that we'll be able to work together to get this speedy recovery.
We will. We're going to get it done. Tremendous numbers of lives have been affected. A lot of real estate's been affected. Nobody's ever probably seen anything like this. You could almost say since the Second World War, when you think of it. I mean, nothing like this has happened. And we're going to get it fixed, so we'll get it permanently fixed, so it can't happen again. And again, we'll be talking a little bit later, and we're going to work that, okay?
I appreciate it, Mr. President.
Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you.
Both of you have disagreed a lot over the past week over what has happened in this state. How do you plan to
We got to
put your
get it
differences
finished.
aside?
We're looking to get something completed. And the way you get it completed is to work together. He's the governor of the state. And we're going to get it completed. They're going to need a lot of federal help. Unless you don't need any, which would be okay.
We're going to need a lot of federal help.
So we're going to take care of things. Okay?
I have all the confidence in the world we'll work that out.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I guess some of you are coming with us, and some of you not. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll see you.
All right, we're back with Senator Alex Padilla, Democrat of California. What's your reaction to what we just heard?
I'm certainly hoping that's the start of a good, productive, fruitful visit. I was mentioning before we paused that the president's been out there before. So it wasn't just a thank you for the federal response to COVID, but to fires during the first Trump administration. And so we're certainly hoping that he'll follow through in a similar fashion after these disasters. And frankly, as a Southern Californian, knowing full well that Southern California is there for every region of the country in their time of crisis, and now we need the country, the federal government, to be there for the Los Angeles region.
Because you clearly need a lot of federal aid to help rebuild these areas that have been totally devastated. There's no doubt about that. What's your reaction to what we heard earlier today from President Trump suggesting that he was thinking of trying to get rid of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is responsible for providing emergency aid from the federal government to these kinds of situations?
Look, in my mind, that's governmental malpractice, right? And the failure of leadership to even suggest something like that, especially in the wake of these devastating incidents, not just in Southern California, but he's coming from North Carolina that was devastated by hurricanes. It hasn't been that long since Florida and Louisiana have been devastated. Other parts of the regions for tornadoes and floods. That's why we have a federal program. And FEMA's there just for the immediate response and laying the foundation for recovery of these communities. Ultimately, we need state, federal, and local resources and the private sector to completely recover and rebuild.
Because in these kinds of disaster situations, almost always, the states and the local governments don't have the billions and billions of dollars that the federal government has to try to rebuild.
Look, what President Trump is going to see is that this wasn't just another fire. The scale of it, I mean, 3 times the size of Manhattan. He'll have that perspective. But the intensity of the heat, the homes that are burned, the other structures that are burned. He's going to see what looks like a war zone. He made reference to a bomb, but the immense areas that's been impacted before individuals can rebuild, before business owners can rebuild. We need roads, we need water lines and gas lines and power lines and all the core infrastructure cleaned and replaced before the rebuilding begins. So it's going to be all hands on deck.
It's interesting because earlier today he also suggested if California wants these kinds of federal assistance, and they need a lot of federal assistance right now, California should require voter ID during elections. What's your reaction to that?
First of all, it's offensive to try to condition or attach strings of any type to disaster aid. We've never done it before as a nation, and we shouldn't start now. Second, can you imagine the outrage from Republicans if President Biden would have suggested, before we help North Carolina or before we help Florida, we need them to change their gun laws? They'd be apoplectic. And so we have to stay with what we've always done. When any part of the country is in crisis, we're all there to help.
You think the president's immigration crackdown could have a negative impact on your state's rebuilding right now, given all of the undocumented workers who are going to be involved, presumably, in helping?
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of immigrants, both documented and undocumented, that are victims of the fire, have lost their homes, have lost loved ones, and even if they didn't lose their homes, they may have lost their jobs. And as we're increasing the detention, deportation activities that President Trump is doing, you got to wonder, well, what's it mean for the workforce? Nearly 40% of the construction workforce in California are immigrants. And so if there's a lot of workers that aren't on the job for rebuilding, it's going to take longer, it's going to be more expensive. There's practical impacts of the president's overly aggressive agenda.
Senator, we got to run, but I take it you decided to stay here in Washington today instead of going out with the president to California because you want to vote in the confirmation process, the nomination process of Pete Hegseth to be defense secretary. How are you going to vote?
Yeah, so I was invited, would have appreciated an opportunity to help educate the president and his staff, but I felt it important to be here to vote no on Pete Hegseth. Unqualified, not prepared, would be dangerous and reckless as a secretary.
You think he'll be confirmed?
We're about to find out. The question is really on Senate Republicans. Are there enough of them who are more loyal to the Constitution, their oath of office, and the troops in our Department of Defense? Or are they trying to prove their loyalty to Donald Trump? We're about to find out.
We'll watch that vote unfold in the coming hours. Thank you very much, Senator Alex Padilla of California. Appreciate it. Good luck to all the folks in California right now. And just ahead, as we just mentioned, the U.S.